Hey everyone, welcome back. So, if you're one of those hyper focused learners out there, or honestly, if you're tuning in today feeling totally burned out, stuck, or just deeply exhausted by the heavy weight of expectations, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today's explainer dives into a deeply personal and frankly profound journey of recovery. It's based on a beautifully candid account of what actually happens when we hit a wall in life and how sometimes the only real way to move forward is to just completely let go. We're going to unpack the mechanics of burnout, the unexpected traps of self improvement, and the incredible clarity that can come from a quiet, simple moment of surrender. I want to kick off this explainer right here with this absolutely powerful quote from the source material. The moment life changes is not when you can control the world, but when you loosen the force trying to control yourself. I mean, just think about that for a second. When things go sideways, our default human instinct is to grip the steering wheel tighter, right? We frantically look for answers. We try to force a mindset shift, and we literally try to command the world to cooperate with us. But this quote sets up the whole philosophical core of what we're looking at today. True transformation and genuine relief, they actually begin the exact moment we stop trying to dictate the terms of our reality. All right, let's dive right into section 1, the real reason for suffering. So, we often live with this unshakable, almost hidden assumption. We think if we just think correctly, act correctly, and live correctly, our lives will just neatly fall into place. We essentially treat reality like a vending machine, right? You put in your effort, you press the button, and out pops a perfect life. But as you know, reality just doesn't operate like that. In the real world, you can put in massive effort and still not get the reward. You can be completely sincere and still be totally misunderstood. You can work incredibly hard and literally just end up spinning your wheels. The source realizes, in hindsight, that the absolute deepest suffering didn't actually come from the failures themselves. No, it came from the rigid belief that those failures were somehow strictly forbidden. We treat life like this programmable machine, but the truth is, it's entirely uncontrollable. And man, when that illusion of control finally shatters, our minds just go into absolute overdrive. Our suffering actually inflates. And it's not even from the present reality we're sitting in, but from our exhausted minds constantly projecting this bleak, uncontrollable future. The author notes that when we are in pain, we essentially put ourselves on trial for the future. We start running through this terrifying internal checklist. You know the one? What if this lasts forever? What if I never actually recover? This is all my fault. Suddenly, we aren't just dealing with a bad day anymore. We are carrying the full weight of an imagined, ruined future. Our mind literally manufactures all this extra suffering. Moving on to section 2, when correctness wears down the heart. Let's look at this wild paradox. Okay, so when we're suffering, we desperately seek out the right answers. The author did what literally millions of us do. They turned to self-help books packed with those classic mantras. Waking up super early, practicing gratitude, maintaining positive thinking, setting big goals, taking immediate action. Now, don't get me wrong, these are perfectly fine concepts. The author even acknowledges that they undoubtedly help a ton of people. But here is the critical insight. When a person is deeply emotionally exhausted, absorbing all this correctness becomes an absolutely impossible task. The mind is just way too tired to process any of it as actual motivation. So instead of lifting the author up, these self-help mantras morphed into this brutal criteria for self-judgment. Think about it. If you can't feel gratitude today, well, it means you're immature. If you can't force yourself to be positive, it means you're lazy. If you can't take action, you're just weak. Words that were originally intended to lighten the load of life suddenly became this heavy, punishing weapon. The author highlights that when you are completely depleted, you lose the capacity to even receive sound arguments. Trying to forcefully inject positivity doesn't cure the exhaustion at all. It literally just punishes you for being exhausted in the first place. Which brings us to section 3, what the night sky taught. This is the big emotional turning point of our source material. The author found themselves just lying on a park bench in the middle of the night, feeling entirely, utterly defeated. They didn't want to see anyone. They didn't even have the energy to walk home. And yet, lying there, just looking up at the sky, they felt this strange, quiet sense of fulfillment. Take a moment to really consider that. Work problems? Totally unresolved. Relationship issues? Unresolved. Gnawing anxiety about the future? Oh yeah, still there. So why, in the absolute depths of despair, was there this sudden peace without actually solving a single issue? Well, the answer was in the sheer scale and honestly, the vast indifference of the night sky. Looking up, the author's relentless self-blame, that loud voice screaming, "Work harder, don't be lazy," finally started to just fade away. They realize the stars and the slow-moving clouds above them do not operate on our schedule. Nature doesn't rush. The universe does not cater to our daily convenience. The silence of that night sky was the answer. The world is fundamentally and beautifully an uncontrollable place. Up until that exact moment on the bench, the author had been desperately trying to issue commands to the world, demanding it behave a certain way. This sky's indifference completely silenced that desperate need for control.
Let's head into Section 4, Stopping the Fight Against Waves.
So the crucial point here is this deeply ingrained illusion we all seem to carry around. The idea that human beings are supposed to be relentlessly positive every single day. We treat sadness, exhaustion, and a lack of motivation as if they're bugs in the system that need to be immediately debugged and eradicated. We think our emotions must be perfectly managed and strictly controlled at all times. But the source material makes it incredibly clear. Human beings simply are not built for perpetual positivity. It's just not how we're wired. The reality is much, much more fluid. The author uses this beautiful metaphor here. Our emotions are just like the waves in the ocean. Sometimes the water is perfectly calm, and sometimes it's incredibly rough. You wouldn't jump into the ocean and try to literally punch the waves into submission, right? Because that would only exhaust you and eventually cause you to drown. Yet that is exactly what we do with our own minds. We fight our internal waves by constantly saying, I shouldn't feel this way. That park bench epiphany? That was the exact moment the author simply stopped fighting the waves and allowed themselves to finally, truly rest. And this brilliantly illustrates what true acceptance actually means. Often, when we hear the phrase, accept your circumstances, it sounds a lot like giving up. It sounds like a defeat, but it's really not. Acceptance simply means acknowledging, okay, this is how things are right now. The author explains it perfectly. It's like choosing to open an umbrella instead of standing out in a thunderstorm, screaming at the rain to stop. You aren't giving up. You are just stopping the pointless resistance to what is already happening. And that frees up your energy to actually take care of yourself. Finally, Section 5, Small Steps Toward Recovery. So once you accept the rain and open that umbrella, what does it actually take to slowly start walking again? Well, real recovery is not this dramatic, cinematic overnight transformation. You don't just wake up the next morning suddenly cured and perfectly happy. Recovery is a process of micro shifts. Step 1 is just slightly lessening the self-blame. Step 2 is noticing that your breathing has become just a little bit deeper. Step 3 is finding that you can gradually face forward just a bit more often than you look back. It's a series of gentle, almost imperceptible shifts that build a real foundation of recovery, and it all stems from that initial act of acceptance. But to actually make these micro shifts, the author emphasizes one more incredibly vital ingredient for this slow walk forward. It's the stark contrast between trying to project perfect strength versus simply being allowed to be weak. While no one else can walk your path for you, doing it entirely alone is incredibly difficult. Having someone, a friend, a partner, a colleague, who can just witness your weakness, hear your complaints, and accept you without trying to forcefully fix you or offer up some toxic positivity, that is absolutely invaluable. Knowing you're allowed to be weak in front of someone provides the exact emotional safety net you need to eventually stand back up. Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. If you are totally exhausted from trying to force your life into this perfect little shape, remember this. You don't need the power to control the world. You just need to loosen the grip on yourself. So, as we wrap things up here, I'm going to leave you with this question. What is one expectation you are desperately gripping right now, and what would happen if you finally just let it go? Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.